Motivation for school. It, School is kind of a scam, to be honest, especially these days when everything's online. You can honestly get a much better education for like in a lot less time by just self-teaching yourself everything online than going to school or university. So with that in mind, school is really only there for like the degree so that you can tell people that you have an education in something. Although I feel like in my opinion, the degree itself is not what teaches you things. It's like your actual like by your own volition to learn things. So but anyway, with that in mind, you do still need to do well in school, and I think to find motivation for that is to sort of understand why you're there in the first place. It could be to learn. I mean, school and especially university does give you a lot of really valuable resources and like gives you a lot of time to sort of explore a bunch of different things and learn a lot. Basically, school just sort of throws a bunch of resources at you that are really, really helpful, and it's up to you to decide what you want to do with them. And I guess to find motivation for school, like, I guess figure out why exactly you're there in the first place. Like, figure out your end goal, like after you finish at school, like what are you going to do with that degree? Because you don't just get a degree for nothing. I feel like there's usually some sort of reason, and the best way to do that is to look for a job like listing and pretend to actually apply for a job and try to notice like what qualifications you do or don't have for those jobs, and like read the job description, look into it, watch some YouTube videos about them, and see if that seems like an interesting job or one that you would want. And then sort of work backwards and be like, okay, if I want to be able to qualify for this job in like 2 or 3 years, or 4 years, let's say you just started university, or like 5 years, like if you're like finishing high school still and you're like, okay, by the end of college I want to be able to qualify for this job. So how am I going to be able to do that? And probably you're going to need a certain degree. So having a very clear end goal for like why you're in school and like why you want to finish school is probably the best way to stay motivated. Because whenever you're feeling like, oh my god, I don't want to finish school, I don't want to do this homework, okay? I mean, you probably don't. And also, okay, another thing with school is like figure out where you can cut corners in your classwork, because like I mentioned earlier, your classwork does not actually teach anything. Okay, actually, spending your time on your classwork, like while you're in school, spending your time on school while you're in school is like the biggest waste of time. I feel like it's the biggest bait of your time to like spend your time on your classes and like doing the best you can in your classes. Like the point of university is not to do well in your classes. I mean, okay, it is, but the point of university is to like have so many resources available to you. And like, okay, time is another resource that university gives you, because admittedly university is really, really slow paced, especially compared to like the real world, workforce industry world. Like school is really slow paced, and you like I think one of the reasons for that, or at least like a good use of that fact, is the fact that like time is one of those resources that university gives you, and you want to make good use of that time. And spending it all on your schoolwork and classwork is actually kind of not the move. I think trying to get a lot of hands-on experience on your, or like by your own volition, which I use that word twice by the way. That basically just means like on your own accord, like in your own will. But yeah, finding, hopefully that makes sense. Like your motivation should come from like what exactly you want to get out of school. And that will make it a lot easier to prioritize your time as well, and hopefully not spend all of it on classwork. Because honestly, like, okay, those of you who are like maybe in the middle of college or something like that, or even like finished college, like if you think back to like all the little assignments that you did throughout the years, it kind of all didn't matter, to be honest. So like could be some cool classes that you took and like you learned a couple cool things, but admittedly, for the vast majority of people, okay, I think, okay, if you're going to like medical field or something, then that's a little different. But computer science is okay. Let's talk about computer science, for example. Like it's a lot more valuable to you to like do your own personal projects and develop a unique portfolio that really stands out, rather than just doing all your assignments for school and like trying to get 100% on every assignment, because that's like, yeah, you get diminishing returns the more time you spend on your classwork. You do need to spend enough time to do well in your classes, obviously. Hopefully I've sort of made that point clear. I don't want to discredit that, but hopefully that makes sense. You ultimately want to focus a lot more on like what you're trying to get out of your college experience, more than you should care about, you know, being 100% in your classes. Because there's this thing that like, you know, the 80-20 rule, that's like 80% of like whatever like skill can be learned in like 20% of the time of like mastery or whatever. I don't know. If you look up the 80-20 rule, you'll see what I'm talking about. But basically, yeah, it's just the idea of like the more and more time you spend on something, you get diminishing returns for like how much value you get out of it. And you don't want to waste your precious resource of time on classwork when there are other more important things to be diversifying your time on and with. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Does school ever make you upset because of the workload? Yes, okay, it actually does. School, I don't understand why, like, okay, I do understand why like certain assignments exist, but like, man, like, can't school literally just be like boot camp for like the job that you're trying to get? That would be so wholesome. Like 4 years of like actual hands-on experience rather than like a bunch of random classes. Like, why am I taking American history? Literally, why am I taking American history? And like why? Like, yeah, whatever. Okay, you know, rant over. School is a really good opportunity and you don't want it to go to waste, but that does not mean spending all of your time on your classwork. That is actually a waste of time. Like, that in and of itself is wasting your college experience, or like not college experience, your, you know, college years, because those are the years that you're supposed to spend that time like growing as okay, so specifically about like, you know, assuming you're in university to help your career, then that time is not really supposed to be spent getting all A's. I mean you should obviously, but that time is supposed to be spent developing yourself as a candidate for jobs. So that involves doing things on your own accord, your own volition, and improving, you know, building a portfolio, resume, connecting with people. College is like largely just about, I don't know, meeting people. And if you're too shy to reach out to people, then the whole point of college is to just be an embarrassing wreck and like make mistakes, try to reach out to people, get rejected a lot, and I don't know, grow as a person. But yeah, hopefully that is clear. Motivation for school should ultimately come from your end goal. I think that kind of applies to anything, to be honest. Motivation for, like, I don't know, learning a language or just learning a new skill, getting better at OSU. Like, motivation usually comes from like your end goal and like understanding your end goal, and having a clear image of that makes it a lot easier to deal with all the day-to-day like gradual, slow but steady, but like you don't really notice any improvements type of progress that you make towards like long-term goals. And also there's this idea that like if you just spend like 6 months trying to get as much like on like the daily grind and like working really hard towards your like sort of ideal self, then you'll be surprised. Like, some people are like, oh, I want to change my life, but I'm so lazy. It's going to take so long. It's going to take like 5-10 years. But like, if you just try doing all of that in like 6 months, you probably won't reach all the way that like you had wanted to reach within like 5 years. But you're at least going to be a lot closer than you would have been otherwise. So yeah. Oh, I've heard once also that like okay, do not take this as like that you should actually do this, but I've heard some industries or like hiring managers actually are a bit skeptical of hiring people that have like a 4.0 GPA or like a perfect GPA, because some industries want people that are okay with like breaking the boundaries of, you know, I feel like getting a 4.0 GPA. Okay, that's another thing. GPA, okay, GPA is not about what you know. Getting a good GPA does not mean you knew everything. Getting a good GPA means that you followed the instructions. And that can literally just mean like not actually knowing what you're doing, but just sort of going through the rubric and like sort of doing what you're supposed to. Yeah, I learned that lesson during high school, sort of the hard way, that like getting a good grade is not about knowing the material. Getting a good grade is about doing what you're supposed to. And it really does not matter what you know. And I would realize this because like in high school, I felt like I knew like more of the course material than like a lot of classmates, but like I would just sometimes not do assignments because I'm like, I kind of already know this. I really don't want to do this assignment. I want to play Osu. So I would just not do assignments. And then I'm like, how do people have such high GPAs? Like, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't necessarily word it this way to myself, but I was pretty sure I knew more, or like I knew more of the material than like other people in my classes, but like people would just have higher GPAs than me. And I'm like, how do you have such high GPA? And then I realized that it's literally not about what you know. It's just about doing assignments. So like you could actually be like the dullest light bulb, but if you just do what you're supposed to, then you will have a good GPA. But yeah, ideally what you want to get out of college is not just a good GPA, because that is not going to get you as much as you might hope it would. GPA is worthless. GPA, okay, in the grand scheme of like your resume and applying for jobs and things like that, GPA is effectively the same as minimum age requirement. Like, you won't be able to get into things because let's say like, you know, you need to be 18 or older to do X thing. You won't be able to do it at all if you aren't at the minimum age. But just because you're at the minimum age doesn't mean that you qualify. And GPA is very similar. Like, a lot of, you know, jobs or internships is like you need, or okay, internships especially, is like you need to have a 3.0 GPA at least. And I don't know if those watching from other countries aren't sure what I'm talking about. Basically, it's like you need to have like a B average, like B average grades. But that is basically just like a minimum age requirement. Like, you need a 3.0 GPA just to qualify minimum, but that doesn't mean that you're guaranteed anything. So yeah, experiments, okay, admittedly, like, okay, another way to put it is like your degree is like 4 years probably just for like one line on your resume that isn't even important. It's literally a prerequisite. It's literally like a minimum age requirement, okay, on your resume. It's just like becoming 18 years old, it takes 18 years, right? But it is like, all it is just a minimum age requirement. So what really matters is all the other lines on your resume. And that is the stuff that like you're given those 4 years to develop. So if you spend all your 4 years in college on that one line on your resume, on your prerequisite of all things, then that is not what you're supposed to do, basically. So yeah, getting good grades is just dealing with busy work. Yeah, that's true, Jello. But the thing is that like you do have to, admittedly, like in modern society, but yeah, ultimately you want, yeah, at the end of the day, really, it just comes down to like you want a clear goal with what you want to get out of college, and the best way to find that is to figure out your end goal, probably a certain job or like whatever you want to use your degree for, and work backwards. See what sort of experience you would want. Look up like model resumes for that job and like sort of see what types of experiences people have on their resumes. And a lot of people make YouTube videos about this stuff also, where they like talk about their resume, or they talk about the hiring process, or they interview hiring managers in that certain field. So just go like on a Google deep dive or like YouTube deep dive and see what you can find. Me, I'm getting my degree in psychology, human factors psychology. I'm studying to become a UX researcher. So yeah, currently finalizing, or not finalizing like my portfolio and resume stuff so I can apply for internships. But yeah, that's besides the point. Okay, point is, hopefully that answered your question with finding motivation for school and classwork. Is like you need to have a pretty good reason why you want to do that. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it.